Okie dokie. Let's crack on. So hi everyone. I'm Sean. I'm the head of developer relations at Expanso. We run and build something called Backlyout, which is an open source distributed workload orchestrator, which makes it super simple to take your workloads and bring them directly to where your data is. But we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. If you scan that QR code there, you'll get some of our docs if you want to do a little bit of a pre or post reading. But today we're going to talk about something a little bit different. I'm going to talk a little bit about the web. You see, the web isn't experienced the same way by everybody. For many of us, the web is a rich, endless tapestry of visual content, of images and video and dynamic topography. And it's no wonder that with such interesting and beautiful content so readily available to us that the web took over the world. But for others, specifically those who may have a visual impairment, the web is not necessarily a visual medium. Instead, it's interpreted and interacted with through a whole host of assistive technologies, particularly screen readers, which take the content that you and I can take for granted and reinterpret it to make it more accessible. And this is great for a whole bunch of reasons. When you have text on a website, a screen reader will take that text and read it aloud so people can understand what's there. And as far as computers go, this is a fairly simple challenge. We've had text-to-speech technologies since the early 80s, and there have been some notable uses of this technology. You should see on your screen right now a man called Dennis Klatt, who almost certainly at some point in your life you will have heard his voice. For you see, Dennis Klatt used his voice in building the voice box that Stephen Hawking used. So Stephen Hawking's voice box was actually using Dennis's voice, and Professor Hawking was very particular about how he sounded. He would have many systems presented to him over the years, but he would only ever accept them if they sounded like his artificial voice did. But again, it was able to take the component parts of words, the phonemes, and string together a sound so that people could interact with it. And that technology hasn't changed much in the last 40 years. There's some neural network stuff now where you can take those kind of like joined up phrases and make them sound more organic, more authentic, more human. But fundamentally, they're the same, stringing together phonemes to make up complex sounds out of very simple parts. And I myself have a fair amount of experience with text-to-speech systems going all the way back to 2015, when I used some of the more modern AI-enabled systems to automatically generate audio versions of newspaper articles while I was working at the Financial Times. So you could listen to the newspaper rather than struggle to read it on the public transport on the way to work these days. And again, that's because, text-to-speech isn't that hard. TTS systems, they take text from input source, they generate something which is reasonably understandable that people can understand, and that's not difficult. But as I said, the web is more than just text. Very top of this presentation, it's a smorgasbord of rich visual content, but to a computer, they don't see things the way that you and I do. Whilst you may see an image of a cloud or a tree or a beautiful vista, instead, a computer gets an array of numbers which define color intensities in one or more channel and then renders those within a defined boundary. And that's a much harder problem to kind of tackle, breaking up words into their component parts and then devising which sounds correlate to those structures is a much smaller problem than trying to describe all of the elements that make up creation. And the difficulty of that challenge can lock people out of of utilizing the web at its fullest, which isn't entirely fair. But this isn't a new problem, and it's one that people haven't been thinking about for a very long time. Back in 1993, so right at the kind of beginning of the World Wide Web, the alt attribute was introduced in HTML 1.2, its draft, which enabled developers and content creators to describe the content of an image on a web page so that screen readers could read that text aloud rather than having to figure out what was in the image or just present a blank space. So it's been a part of the web since almost the beginning. And that tag has worked its way through almost every website in some form or another since, whether it's to boost the accessibility of the content, or to simply have some failover content if an image fails to load. But here's the thing: despite alt tags being a feature of the web for over 30 years now, it's still not utilized by so many people when posting things online. And why? Well, it's hard to be sure as to the reasons why. It can be that people aren't aware of the benefits and utility of including alt text. It could be that people don't care. It could be a mix of both or something in the middle. But the why doesn't matter so much. The real question is, how can we encourage people to describe their images for others? And for us at Expanso, the question becomes, what can we do about that? Well, we live in the future. And the world hasn't remained static in the last 30 years. Huge leap forwards in computational power, drops in prices for that power, and software that enables us to do things now that even a decade ago would have seemed incredibly hard are now almost trivial. And one of the big things that I'm sure you're sick to death of hearing about over the last couple of years, but has burst out onto the scene, has been the prevalence of large language models, which again underpin things like ChatGPT and OpenAI. And I think they've become one of these things that is like so commonplace and in the fabric of everything we talk and do these days that we do sometimes forget that large language models are actually quite incredible. When you think back to what a chatbot was like in 2015 or 2022 to what it is today with an LLM, the difference is night and day. These huge models have a corpus of practically everything that has ever been said online. It enables us to, process and interact with information in a much more natural and conversational way that I think we've just forgotten wasn't a thing really in that kind of sense of the word back in 2022, before 2022. And the range for LLMs, of uses for LLMs has seemed to be boundless. But again, this is a computer handling text. While an LLM can take what you write, interpret it, and give you some great structured, although sometimes factually challenged, shall we say, responses, it's still just text in and text out. But wouldn't it be great if we could take visual content, break it down in some way that an LLM could interpret those pixel values more in the way that you and I might, and enable us to use this transformative technology to further optimize and automate the processing of the world around us. And that's what a large vision model does. It's an LVM. And an LVM is basically an LLM, just the same as any other, Llama, DeepSeek, take your pick. But it has an additional component which sits before it, between the language model and you, a visual encoder. And what that does is essentially it takes images that you want to work with, breaks them down into smaller chunks, and tokenizes them in essentially the same way an LLM might for interpreting words. And it passes those along to the large language model, which then enables those huge neural networks to gain some ability to interpret images visually, rather than just as that array of pixels that we saw earlier. When that happens, well, suddenly we have a model that we can ask questions about with regards to images and media too. You can start to see the utility of such technology when it comes to generating things like alt text. And that's great. If you want to run an LVM for this kind of purpose locally, it's trivially simple with something like Olama. But what if you want to run that model somewhere else and then build a product or feature on it? As any developer or DevOps person will tell you, getting ML workloads off of the laptop and up into the cloud isn't always the simplest proposition, but it's something that we at Expanso are really rather good at. And that's because we have Bacalhau, that thing I mentioned at the start. So again, Bacalhau is our open source distributed workload orchestrator. It's very clever. It's very cool. It has a ton of neat features, but it does one thing really, really well. It gets your workloads to where you want them to run quickly and securely. And deploying a large vision model with Bacalhau is as single as running a single CLI command. So again, if you want to read a bit more on this later on, please do scan the QR code or just Google Bacalhau. I see someone with a camera, so I'm going to hold on for a sec. There we go. And we do this with a technique we call compute over data, or COD. Bacalhau is Portuguese for COD. So it's why it's called Bacalhau. We were founded in Portugal. And computer data is a little bit different from how you would deploy things traditionally. In the vast majority of architectures you'll see in systems today, data is brought from the points that it's being generated to usually a central location for processing. And that's a fine way to do things when you're working at a small scale. But as your users and the amount of data you have to work with grows, so too does the cost of maintaining that pipeline. Egress fees, storage costs, processing fees, they get larger and larger as more and more things happen. And we think that one of the ways that you can continue to grow without having to enhance or continually funnel money into your bandwidth charges is by computer data. Instead of moving data around your system to process it, you can push applications to work directly over the data where it's created. So instead of putting gigabytes or terabytes of data over the line, you can push megabytes of workloads directly to where it is already on your existing infrastructure. It's faster, it's cheaper, it's secure. You can get within your existing governance and systems, and it makes it super easy to deploy ML workloads because if you can containerize it, Bacalhau can run it, and it can run it anywhere. And to prove that point, a few months ago, we launched the Bacalhau job bot on Blue Sky, which was basically a bot account that you could use to deploy arbitrary workloads using our network of connected high performance CPUs and GPUs. We built this on Blue Sky because it's an open platform with a well documented API, and it's very easy to build something interesting on top of it. And we get to meet people where they are and talk about the things that they're working on. And the general idea with us was we have a CLI tool. We wanted to show how you could make it super easy to use distributed computing with Bacalhau through something as simple as just doing a Blue Sky post. And again, people have been using it. It's been lovely. It's been a great way to show off how powerful distributed can be with something that's just on a social media site. No install script required. And while we were there, we noticed something from people on Blue Sky, that there are a ton of images up there. Unsurprisingly, it's a social media site, but not all of them are alt tagged, and not everybody's happy about that. So we sat back and had a little think. We're really good at building and shipping ML applications and workloads. We have a whole bunch of compute just kind of sitting on the network, waiting for people to try and build things with it. And we have a Blue Sky bot interface that we can augment practically any way that we want. So maybe there was some way that we could help solve this problem. So a few weeks ago, we launched the Bacalhau alt text bot, essentially a separate bot account, which if you add a response to a Blue Sky post that has an image, or you post an image at it, or you repost a post with an image at the bot, then we will take that post, take the image in there, bundle up it into a workload, send it off to our GPU and CPU network, and generate some alt text on the fly. And yeah, let's take a look at some examples, and then we'll give it a go ourselves. So this is my mother and sister in a pub in Dublin, and according to the large vision model that's running through Bacalhau, the image contains two individuals holding glasses of beer and raising them in a toast. Guinness is technically beer. It's a stout. They are standing at what appears to be a bar or restaurant setting. Again, correct. Both are smiling and seem to be enjoying themselves. Yes, they are. That is my mother and sister having a good time. The next one was this actually came from someone on Blue Sky who just kind of posted an image, but it was a very famous village called Matera in Italy. The large vision model knew that it was Matera, and so it described it and the scene. So the image shows a picture view of the village of Matera in Italy. Yep, the village is known for its sassy quaid dwellings and UNESCO World Heritage Site. And landscape is lush and green with terrace fields, typical of the Italian countryside. So what's kind of interesting there is that it's not necessarily alt text, it's kind of like augmenting a little bit there. But the only prompt that we pass to the large vision model is briefly describe what's in this image. So it gives it a fair amount of leeway to come up with some new things. Finally, we have a picture of me. I went to a cyberpunk party recently. And this is one that I threw in there to be a little bit challenging. I had how do you make things cyberpunk? You put LEDs in them. So I made a hat that changed colors based on the music, which is good fun. But in the image, there is a man standing on a staircase at night, which is correct. He appears to be wearing a black top hat and has a beard and a mustache. I mean, I do technically have a beard and a mustache, but I wouldn't say that they're separate. They're very much connected. Now, this is the interesting thing. The man is holding a small handheld device, possibly a smartphone or a similar gadget. That's not quite true. I'm holding a glass of whiskey because it's a party. So the LVM doesn't always get everything right, but it does do a good job of being fairly accurate about what's going on there. And again, we would surmise that this is preferable to literally nothing. Again, alt text is something that people really should do. But if we can help do that with some large vision models, then we'll go and do that too. But don't just take my word for it. Let's do a little demo, shall we? So, Joe, I'm just going to switch over the screens very briefly. Hold on. Hold on. Nope. Can you all see my Blue Sky account? My Blue
Yeah,
Sky profile?
yeah, we can see it.
Excellent. Cool. Right. Brilliant. Then let's put an image into it. So I'm just going to go in here. I'm going to add the alt text back of your alt text bot. Let's attach an image. I've got some demo ones down here. Now we've actually enhanced this since the last time we saw it. So I'm going to put in just a generic picture of a man working on some solar panels on a roof. I'm going to post that. It's going to take a second. Might be using a little bit more of my bandwidth than I could possibly like. There we go. Right, cool. So that's off now. It's essentially being bundled up by Backyard, which is polling Blue Sky saying, hey, has anyone made any requests of us? And if the answer is yes, we go through that request. We say, cool, there's an image in here. Let's distribute that to the network. So we bundle it up in a job and say, hey, go and do this, please. And after about 10, 15 seconds, depending on when the job is scheduled, depending on where in the world it gets executed on. So we have nodes in, I think, the West Coast, not too far from where you are in Seattle. We've got a couple in Europe. We've got a couple out in the Far East as well. But after 10, 15 seconds, we should get a notification which says, okay, here's the alt text. This is a live demo, so it may go wrong. Let's find out, shall we? Huzzah! Okay, cool. So the image shows a person standing on a rooftop with a solar panel array. In the background, there is an urban city skyline visible, indicating the rooftop is located within a city. Not bad, huh? I've managed to invoke an LVM with a single post. It's gone and it's found a GPU, it's gone and executed the workload, it's taken the results, it's posted it back to me. Let's try something a little bit different. As I said, we've enhanced this since last time. So I'm going to take this and let's add, yeah. I don't know if any of you are familiar with the poetry of Robert Burns. My father was Scottish, so we grew up learning all the various different poetries. And one that's quite famous is called Ode to a Mouse, where Burns writes about a mouse. But it's in Scots. It's a sister language to English. It's not quite like the Scottish you might imagine from television, but it's adjacent. So it's really interesting to kind of throw it into these things because this is not a photo. This is a this is a picture of text. Right? So again, completely opaque to screen readers, but it should be passable through our system. So hold on. Just give it a couple seconds. I have found that sometimes Blue Sky gets a little bit stuck. So let's just have a look. What's that old expression? Never work with, was it animals in live code? So that may not have worked. Hang on a second. Oh, I didn't. Okay, it didn't work, but I didn't mention the bot. So I've just posted that on Blue Sky. Let's do that properly, shall we? At alt text. Oh, that's embarrassing. to a mouse. Right. Let's actually send it to the bot this time. We'll give another 10 seconds or so. You too can act this bot and try it with your images. So if you have some on your phone, you have a Blue Sky account, please do throw some things at it. It should behave itself. Got some documents as well, pretty good there. But yeah, give it a sec. Let's see how that's turned up. Here we go. So the image shows a piece of paper with handwritten text that reads "To a Mouse" by Robert Burns. The background is a simple, solid color, likely white or light beige, which contrasts with the black ink of the text. Now you may be thinking, well, that's all well and good, Sean, but the whole point of an image like that is that we want to be able to understand what the text is on there. So we actually do something different. We actually hold up. We did a second pass in the background. So what's nice about Baclia is that you can essentially say to it, hey, I actually have multiple tasks I want you to do. So for each image that comes along here, I want you to create one job, which goes and does the alt text generation through an LVM, again, describe what's happening in the photo if there's one. And as a document, I want you to go and extract the text from it with a more traditional OCR service. So we did one with Tesseract OCR engine, and then we switched it out to use AWS TextDirect. Because that was nice and simple with their results. But that's the nature of Baclia. You can switch these things in and out very, very quickly, very, very easily, and they'll get scheduled to run however you want them to. So yeah, that's pretty much the thing for the second. I'm just going to check. Yeah, hang on. I have some resources for you. So yeah, if you want to check out the source code of the alt text box, then that's on the left there. If you want to check out the more general Blue Sky bot code, then that's in there as well. And if you want to read about the ins and outs, the actual underlying infrastructure of how we built this, then we actually published a blog a few weeks ago when we launched this out there. It's been going for a few weeks now. If you have ideas for it, or if you want to try and do new things with it, we want to get to the bottom of like how this thing actually works, then go check out there. But I also have this QR code. Now I didn't put a title on it. I think I've forgotten what it is. I'm going to say something. If you scan that QR code, you'll be taken through to my Calendly. You'll be able to book half an hour to talk with me about any of this, about distributed computing, distributed ML, LVMs, LLMs. Again, something we're really good at. So take a scan of that, drop it in. My calendar's open. I am at KubeCon in London next week. So if you're there, come and seek me out as well. I'll be on the Intel booth working with those guys. They're doing great. And yeah, more than happy to have a natter and a chatter. That's pretty much it. Any questions, Joe? I leave it. I throw it back to you.
So thank you, Sean. So let me see. Any questions, Monica? Yeah. One second, please. Let me try to change it to the webcam.
Sure thing, of course.
So this is experimental. Let's see if it works. Can you hear me?
I can. Yes, I can. I've got a very good close up of your face. There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Slightly terrifying.
I'm sorry.
Question is,
It's okay. It's okay.
is alt text in MCP already the protocol that we're making for AIs to be able to interact with the web? Is it already in there?
That is an excellent question. I haven't seen any standardization around alt text in MCP specifically, but it would not surprise me if that was going to become part of it in the future. I think, again, this is one of the use cases I think lends itself very naturally to this combination of technologies. And now that the MCP is coming and starting to standardize how we interact with LLMs and LLM, adjacent systems, it wouldn't surprise me at all if that made it in there. But I haven't seen that yet. I've only started seeing kind of the discourse around MCP in the last month or so. And alt text hasn't been one of the things that's kind of bubbled up yet. But it wouldn't surprise me if you saw it.
You should make a PR. You should make a PR.
That's not a bad idea, actually. I will look into that. Yeah. Thank you.
I have another question. For these LVMs, is it all transformer based at this point, or are we still using some convolutional layers here?
I believe it's all transformer based at this point, at this level. So the model that you can check out that we ended up using was Lava, LLAVA. I don't know if one of my previous slides had a link to the Alt Lava module we built specifically for this, but I may be able to just put this up on the screen for you real quick. Hold on. Yeah, I don't believe there's much in the way of a convolutional element in there quite yet, anymore rather, but I'd had to check that. Where has that gone? Hold on a second. I've got a resource for you.
I was thinking the OCR may still be convolutional. I don't know.
But the OCR almost certainly is. Yeah, again, that's a separate second pass through a different model. So that is almost certainly through a convolutional neural network. Yeah. I have a little. I'm just going to share my screen again very briefly for you. If you want to see like the ins and outs exactly of how we've built this, it's available as a Docker image and a separate container where you can pass in these things. You'll need a system with about 8 to 10 gigs of memory and a reasonable CPU to get it going, or a GPU if you've got one of those as well. But yeah, I would check that out and just kind of see how the inner workings are going on in there. Again, this is largely just a Raptor Llama, so thoroughly recommend if you want to get started with this stuff, checking that out too.
Do you expect to do any video in particular, short length video, like 15 minutes or whatever?
So as I understand these models at currently, what's on the kind of the open source space, I don't think there's been much in the way of processing videos. Like back in the old days when I was writing software to understand videos with convolutional neural networks, often we just kind of break it up into frames and keyframes and try and analyze those and kind of get a sense of what was going on over time. Of course, we've moved along since then, but I haven't seen anything specifically for video in the LVM space yet. But it wouldn't surprise me if someone is not working on that currently quite aggressively.
Thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else? It's very strange kind of hovering above all you all. I feel a bit like, in Star Trek when people get injected with like, superpowers. Just kind of, there he is, just kind of hovering around. But no, now is the time.
Any more questions, Sean?
My favorite color is red. I'm a Capricorn.
I got a question.
Yes.
What's the best way to connect with you, Sean?
Sorry?
What's the best way to connect with you?
May pull up that.
LinkedIn. Yeah. Give me a sec. I'll throw this up on LinkedIn for you. Hold on. Yeah. So my name is very Irish, which means there's 5 different ways of spelling it. So I'm just going to throw up my profile link, my name, and then you'll get there. Or again, if I put that QR code up for you, you can scan that and it will book some time with me. You'll get my, contact address and everything as well. Hang on, let me throw it up on the screen. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, straight to my calendar, and if you book something in there, you'll get my details. Otherwise, just LinkedIn. Sean M. Tracey. It should have been in the DeSci. Or just search for Battle Yao Sean. I'm sure I'll come up somewhere. Cool. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, yes. Come on, not yet. One more questions for you. Go on.
Go for it.
Do you see any application of this technology in other fields? Like, for example, like I can try to learn how Messi plays soccer, sorry, by watching his videos on YouTube, and I can try to imitate it through this application. Or something like in CCTVs, it's always recording a video of that place. Can I remove the parts of the video where nothing happens so I can conserve memory better? Like those kind of applications. Do you see this kind of technology, being applied to those aspects?
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And so you probably could use something like this to do that, but there are far more efficient, in the case of the football, the CCTV, like image segmentation models, which would allow you to identify kind of key things and processes going on inside of the video which wouldn't be as costly in terms of both power and like compute energy to run. So I don't see those being use cases for these sort of things quite yet now. But again, like, if you take what you can do with large vision model, if you can suppose that it will run quite efficiently with video in time, it makes sense that it could do scene descriptions in real time. Has anybody ever? I don't know how TV works in America. Sorry, but in the UK we have additional audio track from most TV stations where it will describe the scene for people who can't see the television. It becomes more like a radio show than it becomes a video show. And again, that is something that is very much left down to the individual interpreter of the recording of the narration. Be able to automate that, again, stretching to be quite nice in the meantime. Being able to augment the models to look for, particularly hazardous spills in industrial setting or weather conditions over time might be some other things you could do. But these are off the top of my head. I'm sure that people with greater imagination than I will come up with some very fascinating use cases for this in the very near future. Yeah, and it'll run back again.
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
My question is twofold. One, so the bot itself, can you, as a user, add prompt to, let's say, like check if the image is a AI generated one or not, or anything as a prompt additionally? And the other part is, what is your larger vision in terms of what you're looking at as a bot or at Bacalhau?
So for the first one, the prompt is customizable. We don't expose that over Blue Sky because the first thing that we always get is drop instructions, do something else, and that is not something that we want to happen. So we deliberately constrain that. The only thing that gets passed through to the bot is the image URL itself. But that does not mean it cannot be customized. Again, we built the application, the Alt Lava application, to take a prompt. So we tweak that quite frequently, depending on how we see results going through to it. So if you take that GitHub repo, that will also work too. When it comes to the second question, you have to remind me of it. Apologies.
It's about the larger vision of the bot and Bacalhau in general.
Oh, yes, of course. Yes, sorry, thank you. Yeah, we're currently working on some new stuff with Bacalhau and the bots. Again, the whole idea of Bacalhau is that you can easily access and deploy applications to where you have available compute. So one of the things that we're currently working on and hope to release in the next few weeks is a framework for people who want to deploy applications on our infrastructure to interact with people on Blue Sky. So you could build something like the alt text bot on your own sign, but use our GPUs, use our CPUs in that kind of constrained environment. And again, that's just something to show off how easy it can be to interact with distributed computing platform. It's not part of the wider strategy for us here at Bacalhau. It is a very nice kind of like talking point, and some of the things we've built with it recently have kind of pushed our own software to the limits in certain ways. So it's been really nice using it in a way it wasn't quite designed for to get this going. And now we just released 1.7, which had lots of changes based on the kind of feedback we had from users and people inside the team who are building this kind of stuff too. But yeah, we'll continue. Again, Bacalhau it's workload agnostic. It's not opinionated about what you can deploy where or when. It can do WASM out of the box, and if you have a container, it can do that as well. And that just means it naturally lends itself quite well to ML workloads. Particularly if you have like a fleet of GPUs or GPUs in specific regions. The beautiful thing is that it just automatically hoovers up the drivers and makes it all kind of go. So I haven't looked at a CUDA installation script in maybe a year now, which is magnificent, frankly. But yeah, that's kind of where we're going with that. We'll be releasing a bot framework in a few weeks' time to let people tinker with our CPUs and GPUs on Bacalhau. And we'll be continuing to show off the kind of power of distributed computing when it comes to deploying ML workloads across the internet.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Hello?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
I'm thinking about what about the enterprise use case where I have maybe tens of thousands of images and I want to be able to just run summarization across that and maybe do some indexing and search? Is that something that you're being used for?
Out of the box. honestly, that is it's one of the things that Bacalhau was built for. So you have, let's say you have 10,000 images. You can fire off 10,000 jobs to Bacalhau and say, hey, here is the image URL. I want you to go and do that. Now, you may have 10,000 images in 10,000 places, but not necessarily 10,000 GPUs to run all those sort of things there. Bacalhau will take your workloads as expect. It will queue it up and it will just work through it on the available compute until it completes that set. And if it fails to compute one of the things, it will just put it in the queue for later on and it will retry it. So that is one of the things, again, like Bacalhau is really, really good. It's queuing, it works, find the resource needed to process, in this case, a whole bunch of images, run this model over it, and it'll just chug away. All you have to do is check on it every now and then to get the results. Or you can have them published straight to something like S3 or SQS or IPFS, whatever you want, really. That's it.
Go on.
No, the previous slide for the QR codes. Could you?
What? That was all.
Thank you. That's cool.
Right. Well,
Actually,
have a wonderful afternoon, everybody.
Yes, okay. One more question, right?
Sean, wanted to ask you, do you
Please.
plan to integrate any language models with this, like let's say Llama or GPT, so that you can have interesting conversations with the end user, with the knowledge base, like, and go into more detail?
That was the first demo we built this year. So we did that at ODSC East back in January. If you would like, I can have you send a link. Or again, if you want to have a longer chat about that, scan the other QR codes and we'll go through it. But essentially, you could have Bacalhau running on different nodes where there was a knowledge base on there, whether in Postgres or as in text files. You could deploy the LLMs to those locations and say, hey, move this up, please. Basically a real-time RAG. And then proxy out the requests from a central point into those individual nodes. So you could have a one-to-one conversation with an LLM directly on your data in place, but without having to directly access that node. So yeah, that is definitely something that can be done. Question?
Thank you.
Yeah, go on.
Yes.
It's short-ish, but also thank you for this presentation. It's a very interesting.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's a very interesting tool. Can your how do you say the name? Bacalhau?
Bacalhau. I say Bacalhau, but I have a British accent, so it doesn't come out right. But Bacalhau, Bacalhau.
Bacalhau. Okay. Can it do like multiple images contextually? Like, let's say I wanted hypothetically to take a picture of a luggage, right? A suitcase luggage in different angles. So I submit 3 photos, different angles of the same item. Can it say, okay, this is like, 3 photos of a luggage, at different angles, and describe those different angles within the context of those 3?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it could. It doesn't because we didn't have a need for more than one thing. But it is totally possible to pass in multiple images and say, hey, this is the prompt I have. This is what is in this space, or how big do you think this thing is, or what color is this suitcase? Yeah, absolutely possible. It's just something that we didn't build because we didn't have need for it. One thing we did think about for Blue Sky was being able to respond with multiple responses to multiple images, but there isn't really a way to tag a response to a image in a post. Like this image 1 is this, image 2 is that, because it's just part of one post, multiple images in there. We didn't want to essentially span the Blue Sky network. We want to be good actors here. So we were like, we'll take the first image that's in there and we'll respond to that. But there is no reason why there couldn't be multiple ones. And there's no reason why you couldn't have a prompt setting context around that on there.
Okay, I have to experiment with it. My thought is like, if I were to say, buy a new apartment, right? I walk in, I'm like, okay, like here's the kitchen, and like here's all of the different parts of the kitchen. Like, how can I maybe set this up, decorate it so that it, let's say the space is used effectively, or what would you recommend for like these different aspects of the space? Do you think it could handle that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, as long as you have a machine with a GPU that can handle the model running, absolutely. It's for Bacalhau again. It's not different. It doesn't matter. But again, insert GPU here.
BYG.
Yes,
You.
exactly. Pretty much, yeah.
Cool. No questions? Thank you, Don. Thank you very much.